Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for our webinar, Reactivating Lapsed Anglers and Boaters and State Agency Examples. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. We have all phones kept on mute throughout the duration of the webinar, but we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation, and so you can ask a question at that time by typing it into the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. Or if you have a question during the webinar, you can type it in and we will read them all out loud at the end to be addressed with the group. We will have a copy of the slides along with a recording of today's presentation posted to the website following the webinar, and we will email all of you when these materials are available for download. Before you exit the webinar, please take the time to fill out the survey that will pop up at the end. We really appreciate your feedback on the webinar, and it also helps inform and helps us plan future webinars. Thank you again for joining us. We will have 3 short presentations today, followed by questions and answers. I'd like to go ahead and first introduce our first speaker. Eddie Herndon is the R3 coordinator for the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries. He came to DGIF with a background in marketing and previously worked to grow youth hunting programs across the country at the NRA and successfully ran the business operations for a collegiate baseball team. Eddie grew up in Maryland and enjoys hunting, golf, and being outdoors. Eddie will now update us on their work reactivating boaters.
Thanks, Joanne. Hi, everybody. I am the R3 coordinator in Virginia, and today I'm going to talk about our partnership project campaign with RBFF and with help with Southwick Associates as well. To reactivate expired boat registrations here in Virginia. And the reason in our state we're actually taking a more holistic approach to R3. So my job does include not only hunting, fishing, shooting sports, wildlife viewing, but also boats as well. So we can go to the next slide, please. All right, just a little background, kind of what we're looking at Virginia. We offer 3-year registrations with the prices there. You could see we offer people the opportunity to renew their boat registrations online, in person, by phone, or in mail. But I wanted to mention that we're kind of trying to push people to do more registrations online, and what I'll talk on later is kind of something that we saw from this campaign, which gives us a little glimmer of hope that more people are going online. It just cuts down on some of the processing and stuff like that. So hopefully we can start pushing more and more people to just go online. It's a lot easier to renew registrations that way. So just here's a little background for that. Next slide, please. So for the campaign, we actually started with about 28,000 boat registrations in Virginia, and that was from October 2015 to 2017. And Southwick actually was able to scrub a lot of that data for us and clean it up. And so our target audience for this campaign was 15,501. The main objective of the campaign was to reactivate lapsed boat registrations, and our second objective was to determine effective messaging, content, and delivery. And we did this in a couple of different ways. So we used 2 separate messaging and audiences. The first being a boat-specific message that was sent to strictly people that had expired boats. As you can see there, that was the treatment boat section. That was around 8,500. And then we also sent a mixture of boat and fishing messages to boat registrations that also had fishing licenses, and that was about 7,000 in that group. We had controls for both to kind of measure the lift, and we also wanted to test out some emails as well. So what we did was, after this campaign, the mailer campaign went out, we wanted to do a follow-up email to some of the audience as well and test boat-specific messages and combined kind of boat and fishing messages, which you'll see in a second, to kind of see which messages were most effective in getting people to take action for us. So you can go to the next slide, please. Here are the two letters that we sent. On the left is the boat specific that only went to people with boats, registration expirations. As you can see, it's the content is all about boating. The photo is only a boat, and there's 3 easy ways to renew your registration. It's pretty simple there for people to fill out. There's a dedicated phone number people can call, or they can go online. The one on the right has a little more of a fishing message to it, and the photo itself is somebody fishing off from a boat. So that, again, that went to people that had expired boat registrations, and also a fishing license. So those were the 2 mailers that were sent on April 1st, or April 2nd, I'm sorry. And we'll get into the results on the next slide, please. So like I said, 15,551 mailers sent. The overall response rate, which was an average of the 2 different groups, boat versus boat with fish. The control was a 2.6% response rate, treatment 6.1. So the ones that actually received them had a 6.1% response rate to them, showing us an overall lift of 3.5%. We generated a net program revenue for this was over $28,000, and the net increase in registrations was 544, meaning we can safely say this, as a result of these mailers, we generated over $16,000 in boat registration renewals for this campaign. Next slide, please. And just to dive into the stats a little bit more here, and kind of go over some of the lessons that we learned. So not only did we generate a pretty good lift, we actually saw that we had the higher percentage of registration renewals online compared to previous years at 43%. Phone was pretty strong with 30%. In person, so they could come to our headquarters in Richmond, or they could go to their DMV, was 23%. And interesting enough, even though there was no option to mail the registration back in, 4% of people still mailed their registrations back to us at 4%. So that was interesting for us to see. It was a positive for us to see that many registrations online from receiving a letter. I think that was a positive for us. Overall, the lift was, as you can see the chart there, it was lower than previous years of this campaign that we've participated in. And the reason for this, I think there's a couple of different reasons for this. The first being we had a lower initial target of lapsed registrations. So we started with a lower number. We've been doing this campaign for 3 years. We also have improved our databases over the years and kind of cleaned up a lot of, people's accounts that were old or wrong information. So our databases are better from the start. And finally, we ourselves also send reminders through the mail starting in 2016. So 30 days out to someone's boat registration expiring, we will send them a paper reminder. And starting in 2017, we were sending email reminders before and after expiration. So all of that efforts kind of lead to an improved ability to kind of prevent people from lapsing and kind of cleaning up our databases. So I think that's why the response lift percentage was slightly lower this year as compared to previous years. We'll have to see how that works out for next year as well. Another takeaway from this campaign is significant number of accounts were closed and canceled as a result of receiving the postcards, which is a positive for us. That helps us further clean up our databases once we can determine that this boat, there's no possibility of them ever renewing. That'll help us in the future, and that we saw a ton of those come through. So that was another positive for us. And finally, another lasting impact was the boating versus fishing messages didn't really show much of an impact one way or the other, which one was better. So if you go to the next slide, please, you can see the response rates were slightly higher for the boat only postcards, only slightly. And then next slide, please. You can see that the lift was pretty much the same as for the fishing specific and the boating specific. So really, it didn't seem to quite matter what if there was fishing content or not. So that was something that we came away from this pretty early on. We got that. So that was interesting to see. So next slide, please. So like I said before, we also wanted to follow up with an email. And this was a list that Southwick provided to us for people that did not respond to the initial letter. And we compiled those emails and were able to send them two different emails. As you can see, the one on the left, boating specific, only a boat image. The one on the right had some fishing imagery there and fishing messages to this group. So we sent those emails on June 22nd, so a few months after our initial launch. Go to the next slide, please. So the response that we got was pretty good for as far as open and click rates go. As you can see on the right there, around 9% for a click rate is pretty good. So those are people that actually clicked to open the email and then did something on the email itself. That's how that would be counted. And obviously, the lesson learned here is that email is super efficient, doesn't cost any money, and it's really easy to do. Something that I think we'll do in the future, no matter what. In addition to any sort of paper-only campaign, I think email is obviously something that should be followed up with. Again, you can see that the difference between the boat and the fish versus just the boat only didn't really factor in much at all, which is just another example for us to learn here from this campaign. Doing the 3.4% of clicks resulted in revenue, which is an interesting note to mention that people, not a ton of people actually went through and renewed their boats through the emails. But it's difficult to evaluate right where we are with that right now. But I think in the future we'll be able to evaluate that better. But it definitely resulted in some lift, and just for the fact that it's so easy to do, there's no reason not to in the future. So that was the big takeaway from the email follow-up. We'll definitely do that again in the future, and overall. I think that would be my last slide. If you go to the next one, please. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Eddie. That's great information. Again, we'll read questions out loud at the end and address them with the group. So next we have Brian Clark, who will present on emails they sent to lapsed anglers. Brian is Assistant Director of Marketing with Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, where he has been employed for 23 years in a variety of positions. His current work largely focuses on digital engagement with stakeholders, human dimensions, and providing support to agency are three efforts.
Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity to share our experience with an email campaign that was aimed at reactivating lapsed anglers during early summer, which is typically when our license sales trail off due to the onset of hot weather. Next slide, please. Like most of our sister fish and wildlife agencies around the country, we are funded primarily by sales of fishing and hunting licenses and grant funds from the Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program. We don't receive any state general fund or other tax revenues to cushion our budget when license sales are down. So participation in fishing and hunting, and particularly sales of licenses and permits, are critical to our agency's solvency and our ability to achieve our twofold mission, which is to conserve fish and wildlife resources and provide related recreation opportunities. Next slide. As part of our marketing plan for 2018, we implemented an email campaign to help reactivate as many lapsed anglers as possible within our marketing budget's constraints. We've been doing intensive email marketing in Kentucky for about 6 years, and we've had strong successes with email in the past, both independently, that is, email alone as a mechanism for marketing, and together with direct mail, social media, and other marketing platforms. Some examples include our elk hunt drawing, which we've been able to annually set sales records with the help of targeted emails, and fishing and hunting license renewals at the beginning of each license year, which we heavily rely upon email reminders for. The purpose of this campaign was twofold. First was to maximize sales of fishing licenses to lapsed customers who had purchased a license in at least one of the previous 5 license years, but who hadn't yet renewed as of mid-June of this year. Due to budget limitations, direct mail was not an option for us in this case. Our second goal or purpose was to provide at customers' fingertips key fishing information regarding licenses, public access, and regulations, which were applicable to their opportunity to fish in Kentucky. Okay, next slide, please. We implemented our email campaign after the majority of spring sales were done, as I mentioned earlier, by early summer, focusing with 2 waves of the campaign around Father's Day and July 4th holidays. These emails were sent June 11 and June 25, respectively, a few days preceding the successive holidays. We considered the entire campaign window to encompass 1 month, 2 weeks following each e-blast. Key components of our 2 email messages, which were very similar, included, and I've tried to highlight those in red there. Hopefully that's not too confusing for you. First, license renewal call to action at the very beginning of each message. Also, references to fishing for the upcoming holiday and a fishing license as a gift idea, especially for Father's Day. Reference to the license year ending February 28th of the next year, in this case 2019, allowing over a half year of fishing opportunities still remaining in the year. And then also links to our website's tools, such as Find a Place to Fish, Lookup or Finder, Fishing in Neighborhoods or FINS, Community Lakes page. That's a program that we highly promote. It's 40 lakes that we have around the state in urban and suburban areas and parks that are readily accessible to the majority of our state's population. Also, Public Fisheries Forecast and Fishing Tips publication, which is very popular but also very, very useful for anglers or potential anglers. Our Fishing and Boating Guide, which is our regulations booklet, and our Fish and Boat landing pages, which are repositories of information related to fishing and boating. We also integrated the following considerations, which we view as best practices in our emails. Consistent look and feel between the emails, that is the messages that were sent, and our website, such as the header design and the font that's used, our agency logo and branding, and so on. Another best practice is one-click access to the information and destination pages that people hopefully would be searching for. and links in our footer to social media channels and subscription preferences so people can readily connect with us in other ways. Okay, next slide, please. In terms of results, we sent the messages to nearly 151,000 email addresses in our lapsed angler list. And the entire list numbered nearly 873,000. So we had a significant proportion that we had email addresses for. Between the two emails, we averaged about 30% for our open rate. Our click-through and sales conversion rates were both around 3% across the two waves of the campaign. By the end of the one-month campaign, we had sold 7,200 licenses to these lapsed fishing customers for over $218,000 in gross revenue. Our gross sales conversion rate was just under 5%, 4.8. Comparing that with our control group, which had a purchase rate of 3.1%, that is those who didn't receive emails, we achieved a net lift of 1.7%. Our net sales margin then, attributable to the email campaign, was over 2,500 licenses sold for a total of over $77,000. Factoring in staff time, prorated usage of our GovDelivery services subscription, and our infrastructural resources and use of our IT staff time, our net ROI was about $75,000. Next slide, please. So in terms of takeaways for us, first is email marketing is definitely worth the effort. This particular campaign reinforced that for us again after several years of increasing success in it. It's effective at reaching lapsed participants for whom we have email addresses. We plan to target lapsed anglers in particular annually going forward. We've done this sporadically in the past, but we really need to hone in on it every year. We're also moving to capture emails more systematically through opt-in placement on our website and roll out a web-based licensing system, which is new for us. For the last several years, we've had a web-based system for online purchases, but our field direct point-of-sale vendors have sold through a different system, but we've now created that as one platform. And so that will increase, we anticipate, the rate at which we acquire valid email addresses for customers. And then a final takeaway is we will continue experimenting with message content. In this case, we did not experiment with content. We used imagery from RBFF's picture database and or listing, and we used principles that we've been developing and honing over the last several years. But we do sporadically experiment as we have time and evaluate differences in the way we build the messages and timing and things like that, in particular days sent. So we'll continue to experiment with that going forward, as well as seasonality. In the past, we found that catching people later on after we do an initial new license year renewal reminder, catching people later on like we did this year is effective or more effective than repeated e-blasts earlier in the new license year. So that's something we'll probably continue to tinker with and find out what works best for us. And if you need to get a hold of me after the webinar, my email address is brian, B-R-I-A-N, .clark, C-L-A-R-K, @ky.gov. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. Next, we have Jennifer Wisniewski, Marketing Communications Manager for Georgia Department of Natural Resources, who will present about their work to recruit, retain, and reactivate anglers and boaters. The goal of her team is to promote hunting and fishing license sales, play a leading role in R3 efforts for the agency, effectively use and expand communication channels such as email, website, and social media to disseminate important messages, and to manage the overall image and brand for their agency.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I'm really excited to see some success going on in Kentucky and Virginia. Those are great. Thanks, you guys, for sharing. I have to preach this all the time. So I feel like it's the agency's responsibility to retain and reactivate. So once we've got you in the system, we keep you there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. If you'll go ahead, Joanne, and hit the next one. So we email and text now in Georgia. And when I say we email, I mean we use your email. We send over 25 million emails each year. Keep going. So one type of email that we send are trigger-based emails. So we send it out 37 and 1 day prior to your license expiring, and then 30 days after and 365 days after. We have a 365-day license, so it's good from whatever day you purchase till 365 days from then. And then we have a suite of other triggered emails which go out around applying for quota hunts, signing up for events or volunteering, doing auto renew, a lot of different things. And then the next type of email, okay, Joanne, is the campaign-based email, which is the ones we're going to talk mainly about today. So this is our lapsed customer campaigns, targeted messages at boaters with no fishing license, hunter ed grads that haven't purchased a license yet, and on and on. And then we also send out content for people that sign up for it. So there's newsletters and fishing reports and blogs, but we just want people to sign up for those types of things and not force that down their throats. But these targeted messages, we pull that data from our license system and send that to our customers. All right, keep going. And now we text. So we tried text messaging this year for the first time. I don't know if everybody uses GovDelivery to do their SMS or texting delivery, but they have really bad data on texting. It's not like email. You can't see your open rates. You can't see click rates. You can't even tell if the number that you load in there is a cell phone number or a landline. But with UTM tracking, we can tell some details. And I'll just encourage everyone, if you don't know what UTM tracking is and you're not using it, after this, Google UTM tracking and figure out how you can implement it in your state, because it's amazing. So anyway, we texted 130,000 mystery phone numbers that could have been half landlines, but we targeted those with a lapsed angler message, and 12,794 clicked the link, and 1,189 of those made a purchase. And then we did the same thing with turkey hunters, which I find are a very particularly hard group to reactivate. So halfway through turkey season, we texted 43,000 people that were lapsed, and 847 clicked through and 81 made a purchase. And you can see our first attempt at texting, it was not so pretty. And then now we've improved our link shorteners and format. So just some lessons learned there. And keep going, Joanne. So we get results. Each account that we have with a valid email, we on average make $12 per year more per account. So that's big. If you can take that over to your licensed person and say, look, if you will validate this field for email, we could be making $12 per year per email more. That's what they do in Georgia, and they're making bank. So off of direct click-through revenue, which means they clicked on an email link and they finished a purchase, we made over $1 million this year off of emails. With view-through revenue, it's more than 3 times that. And when I say view-through, that means you saw the email and maybe you went to Walmart to go buy your license. That's not trackable digitally, but we try to we'll take a 72-hour period after an email is sent and look at that and say that that's the spike in sales that an email generated. So anyway, looking at total retained and reactivated people that we have through email, this is the most effective R3 program that we do. And we're going to talk about some examples of that. Keep going. One more. So lapsed emails. If you are not using RBFF's toolkit to reach out to lapsed anglers, you are missing out. So we've been using this for over 5 years, and our angler churn over 5 years, we were at 52%. We're down 7% to 45%. The total revenue that we've made off of 3 lapsed communications that we sent out in the last year is over $1 million. And if you look at our fishing license holders over last year, we're up over 82,000. So it's a pretty effective campaign for us. We've changed up a little bit how we send out messages. So we're now targeting metro area with Metro Atlanta with opportunities around them. We segment out ladies and target them with kind of a make memories message. 45 plus, we kind of say, take the family, and we try to make these targeted messages that are more effective. We found that that is more effective. Another thing is where to go. So location based, a lot like Brian was saying, that people want to know where to go fish. So if you can give them where to go fishing near them as closely as you can, that's very effective. But you can see between August and March and July, we do the same thing as Kentucky. When nobody's buying a fishing license because they've already bought it, we do a lapse communication then, which has been fairly successful for us. And keep going, we'll do another example. So another group that we decided to target this year that we've never thought about before is, hey, there's this group of boaters that don't buy a fishing license. Well, we know from our BFF studies that fishing is the #1 thing to do off a boat. So we want everybody that boats to have a fishing license. So in May, we pulled, and so about 300,000 people in Georgia have a boat. And in May, we pulled the list of people that had an email that didn't have a fishing license, and we came up with 68,000 folks. We emailed them in May, and off of direct click-throughs and view-through, 1,860 people bought within that 3-day window. June, we were down to 16,000 boats with no fishing license that had an email, and we made 119 more people purchase a fishing license. And then in July, we were back up to 32,000. That's because of the July 4th weekend. Everybody goes out and renews their boat registration. That's why the big jump in boaters. But we got another 600 people to go out and buy a fishing license that had a boat. So total agency revenue is about $60,000, and the 2,500 people bought a license within 3 days of sending that email, and we send out on weekdays, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We don't send out on a Friday afternoon and think that we made all those people buy a license. I think that's a really important thing to point out, because if you're sending out an email on a Friday when everybody was about to go buy it anyway, you can't claim all that. But at any rate, so when we began, we had 68,000 boaters without a fishing license, and now we have 32,000 boaters without a fishing license. So that's some pretty good results. And also, if you take a snapshot year over year, this year we had 7,000 fewer boat owners without a fishing license than we did the year before. All right, next slide. So coming up on hunting season, I didn't want to neglect saying something about hunting, even though this is the RBFF webinar. We don't like to neglect our non-residents because they make 60% of our license revenue. And Georgia's just like Kentucky. We're 100% dependent on license revenue. So I can't neglect our bread and butter, so to speak. So we like to send out a non-resident lapsed communication too. So we did big game hunters from southeastern states, and we emailed them after gun season started and it was getting into the rut. We sent it out on Wednesday when the sales are usually low. Joanne, if you'll just keep clicking for a couple of times, you can kind of see the email message. We wanted people to not only hunt, but also fish and come visit Georgia. So the message is kind of Georgia welcomes you. And so we had a pretty good lift. We had 1,500 people purchase within 24 hours of the email, and on a Wednesday, that's pretty good for us. That was $420,000 in license revenue, and we had an 8% lift of fishing licenses. People bought fishing licenses against the control group of people that didn't buy fishing licenses. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe we sold them a combo. But those non-residents, sometimes we don't always talk to. I think everybody needs to maybe talk to them too. And okay, go on to the next example. So parks promotion. I don't know if everybody's got the same opportunity, but sometimes state parks have empty spaces, and we like to try to give deals to hunters and anglers to try to fill those spaces, and then thank hunters and anglers for being a license purchaser. So this is the message that we send out. You know, your hunting and fishing license purchase helped wildlife this year. Thank you for your support, and we're offering you a great deal on state parks. Thanks for being a DNR customer. And so we sent that out around the holidays last year. And I don't know a whole lot about state park promotions, but the state parks people tell me that this is one of their best promotions of the year, as it drove $30,000 in park revenue to them. So that's pretty cool. And going forward, we're actually going to try to use state park deals as a reactivation tool for anglers. So we see your fishing license is lapsed. If you purchase a license, then we'll give you a deal at a state park. So up and coming, something for the future. But keep going, Joanne. So just some best practices. One more. Get their email. It's valuable. It's so valuable for your agency to get customers' email. And you can also make it valuable for the customer to give you an email. You know, make sure that they're getting triggered messages around license purchases and stuff. Customers really like that. Use pop-ups like what you see here on topic-specific pages, and a lot of pages. You can sign up for all sorts of different types of updates, whether it's shooting sports or fishing or, you know, certain hunting season updates, newsletters, all of that type of stuff. And it's important to put these on a lot of different pages, because people don't start at the home page of your website. People Google, you know, buy a fishing license or hunting dates. So they are getting to an interior page of your website mostly. And you can use Google Analytics to show you all of this. And it is so valuable to get these signups online as well as through your license system. Use contests and giveaways as tools to get more email addresses. And if you do use GovDelivery, in that unsubscribe footer, that, you know, we all have to have that unsubscribe option, but you can make that a topic unsubscribe instead of a one-click unsubscribe from everything. And that'll help keep your folks in the loop. So if they've signed up for the hunting newsletter, but you sent them a marketing message about being a lapsed hunter, when they click, they just unsubscribe from those lapsed hunter emails. They don't unsubscribe from your hunting newsletter. So that's a really important one. And another one is use APIs if you can to connect your license sales system with your email system. Or if you don't have that capability, do it manually. Go in and get all the emails out of your sales systems and dump them into your marketing email system. Okay, Joanne. So we have data. We should be using it. We know age, we know location, we know gender in a lot of cases. There's a lot of stuff that we know about our customers, and we need to be using that to target messages to try to drive license sales. So here you see some examples of other ways that we've done that. So the first one there is we have sort of an older age, reduced cost lifetime license. So we grab everybody in the system that doesn't already have a lifetime license that's between 49 and 59, and we email them, you know, get this reduced cost lifetime license. Then another one that we do is there's a youth multi-year license. So I email everybody under 16 that doesn't already have a license and tell them, hey, get this multi-year youth license. It's a great deal. Another one that we do, a lot of states have these wildlife plates that fund their the non-game section or wildlife conservation section or some other funding. And in Georgia, we renew around our birthdays. So if it's your birthday month, you get the birthday gift of having to go to your county tag office and renew your tag. Well, we know when our customers' birthdays are, so we say, happy birthday, go buy a wildlife tag. Another one, so we started giving away experiences for people who purchase a license for the first time. So if you purchase a license for the first time in this period of time, then you're entered to win a fishing experience, whether that's a choice of several. There's, you know, bass fishing, trout fishing, go saltwater fishing. There's several, I think there were 6 different trips that you could go on. And so there were 22,000 people that had created an account in the license system, but never purchased a license for whatever reason. So we hit them up with this, and we were able to sell some licenses like that. Another is auto renew. We have a great feature called auto renew that you can switch on any license, and then you never have to come buy a license again. And so with timing of license expiring, we can use that to try to drive people to auto renew. Okay, keep going. So I hope everybody uses a dual email approach. So you have a marketing or a campaign-based message system and a trigger-based message system. That way, when somebody unsubscribes from one, they don't unsubscribe from all. And keep going, Joanne. And keep a content calendar. So we send out 25 million emails a year. So it's important that we don't all like to send them out on Monday. So we keep a calendar so that when we're all sending out emails and newsletters and all of this different content, people don't get 5 emails in a day, because that can be a big turnoff to people and cause unsubscribes. And another one. So track your results. So when I was talking about UTM tracking a little earlier, this is what we can see when we have UTM tracking. So you see a medium, which is email. You can use UTM tracking for social media or any way that you want to link somebody's website. And then you see the campaign. So each one of these during the time period that you see at the top gave the revenue column of this many people purchased licenses. You can see the transactions. You can see, you know, how many people are bouncing out of your sales site. You can see how many people are new users, how many users you generate at all. So, you know, there's a lot of data that Google Analytics, that's very powerful tool, can get you. And now your license system is not going to be able to give you dollars. This was something that Brant set up for us special, but I bet they'd be glad to talk to you about how to do it in your state if you wanted to. But you can track at least users and some of these things. And an interesting thing, so if you look at number 7, which is first mail, that's an email that I sent out in March. And you see this time frame up here that we're looking at is May through June. So this email that I sent out in March, 662 people clicked on that email, and then we sold $12,000 worth of licenses off of it. And this is an email that I sent out in March. And I'm having the same results from emails that have been sent out over a year ago. So I guess people are not like me. I delete an email as soon as I get it. But people are storing these things in their inboxes and searching for it and finding us that way. So just thought that was kind of interesting. And last slide. So for next year, we're going to continue these experience giveaways for new customers, do some state park deals around reactivating customers. So trying to get them to purchase a license, and then we'll give them a state park deal. Also, we're going to geo-target some more regional lapse message. So send out maybe 15 lapsed angler messages, but have 15 different ones based in 15 different areas of the state. That's what, because people really want to know location. They want to know what's within an hour of them. What can they go do that's super close by? So that's a new thing that we're going to try this fall for lapsed anglers. And also continue these current strategies, doing lapsed communications, driving those revenue makers, and making email collection a huge priority. There's some new tools out there that you can validate email addresses with, like Mailgun or something similar. So there's things that you can do to make sure that people aren't giving you bogus emails too. But yeah, that's what we got.
Great, thank you very much, Jennifer, and thanks to Eddie and Brian as well. We are now going to address some questions, so if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box on the right side of your screen, and we'll read them out loud for the group. We already have a few questions in hand. This first one is for Eddie. Darcy is wondering what overlap there is in Virginia between traditional peak fishing sales and peak boating registration time periods.
Um, I I don't know that off the top of my head. I think they're similar around the seasons, obviously. In the fall, we get a huge uptick in trout sales, the trout stamp, due to some fall stockings. But yeah, mostly we see obviously increasing in the spring leading up to the summer for both. But I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Great, thanks. The next question is, for Virginia, how much do they spend on the mail campaign? And I can answer this one. We at RBFF, we partner with state agencies to do this voting program. So we spent about $9,000 on the mailer, and that includes printing it, sorting it, stuffing it, and the postage to mail it. So Virginia itself didn't have to spend that much money, but that's what RBFF spent on Virginia's mailer. All right, the next question is also for Virginia. What was Southwick's involvement in the campaign? What were they hired to do?
Joanne, you might have more. I think they were handling the databases, evaluations of the campaign for us. I think that's what mostly they did, right?
Yeah, Southwick took the data from Virginia and cleaned it up a bit, and they cross-referenced it with the people who own fishing licenses, and just then during evaluation, they evaluated the program. So they got data at the end of the program to look at who renewed during the evaluation period, and they took out people who might have renewed between when we received the data and when the first mailer went out. So they just helped with sorting the data and evaluating the program. I personally wouldn't think you would necessarily need to hire people to evaluate. We've seen from a lot of examples that this mailer for boat registration works and gets a positive revenue. So you might not necessarily need to hire someone to evaluate. The next question we have is for the group, I believe. Has anyone quantified a difference in success rate of reactivating a lapsed constituent based on how long they have been lapsed? For example, do you have more success with someone that has been lapsed 2 years versus 5 years?
I can answer that. So yes, short-term lapse, which we define as less than 3 years, we have a much greater success rate than long-term lapse. But we send messages like, we miss you, or did you get too busy, to people that are more than 3 years lapsed, and those are effective. So you kind of got to appeal to their emotions a little bit. That's more effective than the blanket, your license is still expired kind of message.
Great, thanks. The next question is for Jennifer. How often do you send the topic-specific emails?
We create a topic for every marketing email that we send. So in GovDelivery, like an email list is a topic. I may have been speaking GovDelivery language, but yeah, in GovDelivery, an email list is a topic. So each list, we create a special list for each email that we send out that's one of these targeted emails.
Okay, I think also potentially the question might be, if you sent one email out to reactivate anglers, do you then maybe send another one out a few weeks later to the same group who didn't renew from the first email?
Well, we have, with GovDelivery, there's a capability to resend to people that haven't opened and haven't clicked on the email. So we resend to the people that did not open the email that we sent the week before. So we do that.
Great, thanks. The next message or question is also for Jennifer. Lauren says, we currently use GovDelivery for our renewal notices and are importing data from our license database manually. What program do you use to connect the two? And can you talk a little bit about what goes into setting that up?
Sure. So GovDelivery already made the APIs, and you just need to get GovDelivery with your tech people to put that API into practice. But you have to tell them, okay, when somebody buys a hunting license, I want them put into this topic. When somebody buys a combo license, I want them to put into these topics. So you got to lay that out for them, and then they can implement the APIs. But GovDelivery's already written all the APIs.
Okay, great. For all three guest speakers, where and how does your agency obtain the email addresses from customers in order for you to do the various email campaigns?
In Kentucky, it's primarily from our licensed customers, although we are beginning to better harness the potential for collecting emails on our website. We also do some enter to win or register to win type contests throughout the year, especially in the spring for fishing and hunting, and then hunting in the fall, primarily for hunting, in which we capture emails and then give people opportunity to opt in other ways. But just because of staffing limitations, we haven't optimized our email work, but we're moving in that direction.
Virginia is the same way. Most of that comes from our license system, but we are looking into things like opt-in Monster, I believe, that will. So if you go to our website, it'll come up and say, "Hey, join this email list." And capturing emails at events and stuff like that is something that we want to focus on in the future.
Georgia, we use our license system and make it really, really hard for a customer to not give us their email.
How do you do that, Jennifer?
Well, we don't say we require it, but you got to click several things to not give it to us.
Gotcha. Sense? Okay. Let's see. The next question. Does anyone have experience partnering with their DMV on boat registration reactivation?
Our DMV doesn't play nice.
Yeah, and I can answer that a little bit better. With our boat registration program, several of the states do have the data at the DMV, and those ones are just more willing to partner with each other than some other state agencies are. It does tend to be a hindrance when the data's at the DMV. I think it's just a matter of having a connection within the DMV, letting them know that this not only helps your agency, but the DMV and the state in general. And it's not, we've heard that sometimes the DMV doesn't want to do the extra work, but it should not be that much extra work. And especially if you can do it continuously, it'll be more of a year-round thing rather than an influx. So creating a partnership with the DMV would be the first step. Next question is for Jennifer. Did GovDelivery charge you to create the API?
No. We pay $40,000 a year for our GovDelivery subscription, and it comes with that. I believe most states are paying about the same.
All right, thanks. How many customers unsubscribe or opt out from receiving email after these campaigns?
So if I email around 300,000 people, we'll usually have 100 to 200 opt out.
Okay.
Yeah, in Kentucky it varies. It may be a handful, like a few dozen, depending on the particular topic, up to 1,000 or more in some cases if it's a very large e-blast.
It's worth it though. I mean, all those unsubscribes are totally worth it.
That's good to know that it's still worth it even with those unsubscribes. The next question is, does everyone have the capacity to sell licenses directly through the email links and or a website?
Yes.
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 Great, thanks. That's the last question we have here. We'll give it another minute for anybody who wants to type in a last-minute question. All right, it doesn't look like there are any more questions, so we'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Before you sign off, please remember to take the survey that will pop up at the end, as that will help us plan future webinars, and we appreciate the feedback on today's webinar. Thank you all very much, and have a great rest of your day.